What does your story say about you? I have slightly sore eyes at the moment. Yeah, I was ill last week, and one of the really bizarre side effects is sore eyes. And so if I'm blinking a lot, doing weird things with my eyes, it's because they're a little sore. Okay, let's get to the talk. So your assumption is that you are existing inside your body and that you're looking at me now, that you as somebody are looking at me. And then you have this feeling of a story, and then the story that's actually running in your mind. So it's not only like a mental story, an image that you can tell yourself and you can think about. It's also this feeling of you. And everybody, and that feeling of you might change throughout the day, and everybody has a particular feeling of them. Like when I studied drama, and when I was younger I was into drama a lot, and I love storytelling, and we used to do these like exercises of holding our body in different ways. So we would do like, I don't know if you can see me, I have to bring up the camera to see what you guys can see. So you'd have like the testosterone guy, like the cowboy guy, and that person would like, I'm not sure if I can do this. Yeah. So the testosterone guy would be all hips. They'd be like, it would be moving by hips. So it'd be like you can't really see maybe. You know, like this is just caricature, but I don't know if you can see me very well. I can't go far enough back. Like it would be all hips, like, you know, the guys that are all like, they're all like moving by the hips, and that would be like more a testosterone guy, and more like the cowboy guy. He's got his guns, and he's like doom 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 doom. And then you've got like maybe you've got like maybe I have to kneel to do it, like a really like timid, insecure person, and they might be all like, this is just caricature, like over the top caricature. They'd all be like take very little steps, and their shoulders are hunched in. It's not like real life, it's like a dramatization, but it's true of people, but just in milder forms. Like somebody that's insecure will hold their body more like that, and might have quite a high or low voice or husky voice, like hello. And then you've got somebody that's like maybe like a sexual woman that's like maybe like really flirtatious, and maybe she's all like boobs and moving the chest like that type. And then you've got maybe what else have you got? The lover, they used to call it, like the one that's always like in love and romantic, like a fantasy person that's always maybe they're really light on their toes, like very dreamy. I know you can't see much, like dreamy, like where people can see me out of the window. I'm not in my place in France where there's where the neighbours can't see me, and I'm just doing all these things. Yeah, when somebody's sitting there, just pull the curtain a little bit. Yeah. And then you maybe got like the nosy person. So somebody that's always like sticking their nose in, and maybe they're more lead with their nose, and they're judgmental. And you've got these caricatures anyway, that that we have in humanity. I don't know if you could have seen much from that, like my body. And this is like one of the great things about studying theatre or drama, like learning about the human body and learning about the way in which we're communicating. And so all of us have this story inside that we tell of ourselves, and then we kind of feel it in our body, and we're communicating it a lot of the time. Like where I am at the moment, I'm near the beach and I cycle along the beach with Khaleesi most days, and you get so many different personality types. And it's so easy for me to read their body of what's going on with them and the story they're telling themselves. And when they're not aware someone's watching, then it begins to come out. Like maybe you've got the grumpy person that's like always snappy and on edge. And it's not that you're always this fixed story, but it's like a habit that your mind is telling again, and then your body is projecting. So maybe you feel very victimized by life and you're always telling the story that other people are bad and other people are assholes. You're going to be carrying that in your voice, in your body. Maybe like that victim story is like creates someone that's very judgmental. So you're always a bit more of a and it's like a feeling in your body, what you create about yourself, of who you believe yourself to be, and then your consciousness, your essence, that which is always there in your sense of being, the I am, but kind of becomes locked into that personality structure, even though it isn't really. Consciousness is always free and always everywhere, and the same with your beingness, with your sense of I am. The I am becomes I am Rupert, I am good, I am better than, I deserve more, I am entitled, they shouldn't do that, why do they do that to me? And it kind of becomes like locked in, that you begin to feel like you're that character which you're always perpetually telling yourself about, and then your body is feeling it, your body is emanating that, and you believe that to be who you are. Whereas that isn't who you are. When you believe that's who you are, you're bound to this world of suffering. And what I define suffering as is seeking, and it's seeking to maintain pleasure and seeking to avoid pain. So that when you believe that you are an entity, you always feel cut off from your essence. You feel cut off from that expansive sense of who you are, that free sense that's never holding on to anything, that's always letting everything pass through itself, that's not a thing and yet all things, that absolute compassion of who you are. And you feel cut off from that. And unconsciously, it's not a conscious thing. You're always seeking to regain that in pleasure, in the next thing, in the house, in the person, in the lover, in the kids, in the holidays, in the things you do, in your activities. And so maybe now, like in Europe and in most of the world, there's a lot of isolation going on. Maybe you can feel that. You can feel how your mind is restricted from a lot of your pleasures that it normally gets, and it doesn't know what to do. It's looking for that. And that to me is suffering. That to me is this dependence on the outcome of life, and the forgetting that there is a freedom that is innate in all things. So that's forgotten. So when you're in isolation or when you don't get your pleasures, you feel this suffering sense because you feel like you can't arrive at your freedom. Again, it's not conscious. It's like if you don't get it, you haven't got the opportunity of getting home, of getting free, of making it, of these dreams that one day you'll arrive and you'll make it. And you never needed that. That's an addiction that actually makes your life worse. It makes you more unhappy. The freedom is innately here. It's so beautiful. It's so wonderful. It's that consciousness. It's that which is always here. This consciousness, this empty looking, and this sense of being. And they're not actually separate. I separate them out. It's this wholeness, this energy, this no-thingness and everything. but just consciousness in the sense of I am is the way that it's traditionally taught, and it's actually a really great way to teach it, because you can see that, or there can be a seeing on the human level, which can be super relaxing for the human, that there is something that's conscious of the human, and there's this sense of being that's always there, that never changes. And so knowing that on the human level can relax the human, which is really good. And the more the person relaxes, the more that this can be sensed. It's not the person that actually senses it, but when you're really suffering, you're really contracted, and you're really focused on your pleasures and pains, you can't begin to sense the wonder and the mystery of everything, because you're so focused on yourself. You, and what you're getting. So often what happens in non-duality is a lot of the teaching is about relaxing that person, and then another mystery, which is all grace, can take over. And when I say it's all grace, it's not down to you, because it's beyond you. It seems to, at first, when you get into this process, it seems that it's you relaxing yourself and you learning all of this. But then at some point, something else takes over. They call it stream entrance in Buddhism. That you begin to remember something that's beyond you. So there is a freedom right now. So what is it that's looking? It's not that story that I just described. It's not that feeling of you as a character. It's this sense of beingness and this empty looking, this consciousness, which is conscious of everything. Like at the moment, you're not unconscious. You could say that on the human level, like the human is unconscious of its freedom, or the human is unconscious of its dynamics. But when I use the word consciousness, I mean, you're not in deep sleep. There is consciousness of all things here. Like there is an awakeness, like this is known, what's happening is known. And that's not something you're doing. You're not like sitting there like typing on your typewriter, being like, be conscious of life now, boom, go, send. Because who would be conscious of that? The consciousness is your birthright. Like when you wake up in the morning, you're not like, excuse me, God, can I just have a bit of consciousness? A consciousness is there, and then the person comes in and is like, hello, world. Jimmy is in the house. The consciousness is. And the same with that sense of being, that sense of I am. Like you never asked to be, for this to be. You're never like, can this be? Can this be? God, can you just make this happen? It's happening. That sense of isness, that sense of being alive, like that's always in every experience, that sense of being alive and this empty looking. That there is a consciousness of everything, and there is this sense of being. And when I say being, I mean like if you were walloped over the head and forgot everything about yourself and who you were, you'd still have a sense of being alive, and you'd have still this empty looking, even if you couldn't remember who you were. Or say if you got like really stoned or really drunk, there's still the empty looking and that aliveness. It's inherent in all experiences. It's there in deep sleep as well. It's just in deep sleep there is no objects to be conscious of, so therefore nothing happens. You could also say there is no deep sleep because everything disappears, so it's just sleep and then awake again. Like it's falling to sleep and then awake again. And this is your absolute freedom. This is the freedom. The person doesn't become free though. The person is always bound to cause and effect. So Lisa is bound to her personality. Lisa can't be different from what she is. She can evolve slowly through time, like a rock changes its shape by the sea. Like pushing against it and changing it. But it's It's not about that. The character changes through this awakening, this realization, and relaxes, but it's always going to have its tendencies. And that's really hard for the mind to comprehend, because firstly, the mind often is judging itself and doesn't want to be itself, or wants to be a perfect person. So it thinks, okay, enlightenment's going to be the perfect person. Here we come, world, I'm going to make it, I'm going to be perfect. So often the person wants to be that. And it's also like, if you believe that you're going to one day become enlightened and be a perfect person, it's also like an impossible task. So you're also like setting yourself up for failure. It's like imagining making the most perfect piece of art. You'd never complete it because you can't possibly do that, because everything's always evolving and there is no such thing as perfection. It's an ever-changing line. The reason that I say this is because one of the mistakes of you, and one thing that you're always seeking for, is waiting to become perfect. And yet the whole time there is that consciousness, and that is that sense of being. The person does what it does. It's actually what I'm trying to do is relax that character, relax that illusory person that's always telling itself it has to perform in a certain way in order to be loved. Isn't that the dynamic you always played with your parents? Yes, what would you like me to be? You want me to be good? You want me to be blonde? You want me to be cute? Okay, here it comes. And then there's the other side that's like, there's the shadow side that's like, I want to be bad. But I've got to be good for the parents. And it's also this relaxing, this judgment that the mind has about other people, about what other people have to be to you, what you have to be for them. Like you could go back to, so one of my teachers was Roger Castillo and Ramesh Balsekar, and their favorite teaching, if you haven't listened to them, is that the collapse of doership creates the end of blame, guilt, shame, pride, expectation. And I don't feel like it's the end. Like in me, there can be these dynamics that arise, and I don't know if I want them to end, but they do diminish a lot. Like there's not really getting stuck in them. It depends how you define them all. But I certainly get a sense of blame if somebody's inappropriate, not like hours and hours of mental agony, but the sense that that's inappropriate what you did. And guilt if I've been inappropriate to someone. But they do certainly relax, because who is the doer? Like this idea that you have done life, that you're controlling your life. There is no one controlling life. Life is a happening. Life is appearing. So everything you do is in absolute innocence, which is so beautiful. It also means, though, that anything that anyone else does is an absolute innocence. So you might be like, oh yes, I can forgive myself. I am innocent, but you are not. Which isn't the case. The other person is just as innocent. We're like the birds singing, the dogs barking, the cheetahs chasing their kill, the sun glowing, the wind blowing. and nobody, there is nobody that is in control of their actions. There is actions appearing from this consciousness, from this infinite mystery of what we are. It appears out of nowhere, and that's your experience right now. It's amazing how the mind hypnotizes you into thinking there is somebody in which action is appearing from. But your experience is that action appears from this moment. It doesn't appear from the past. We can put it into patterns and we can say, okay, I acted like that because you treated me badly in that moment, but that's just the pattern. The actual experience in the moment, so that's the pattern that we can think about. The experience in the moment is that your actions arise from nothing. Your actions arise from no place. This world arises from no place. It's phenomenal. Everything's arising from nothing, from no place. Or you could say every place. That's your actual experience. Your experience isn't that it arises from the past. That's the hypnosis of the mind. This is where you get so stuck in time, in past and future and past and future. Life is arising now, your action arising now, and your action's actually innocent. We can be reconditioned. So if I'm told, like, by supporting a certain product, I'm hurting animals in Ethiopia, then that new conditioning can come into the body mind, and then maybe the next time that product won't be bought. But it's down to life as to whether that really happens. So we can recondition these bodies, just like it seems like the ocean is carving and molding the stones on the seashore. So that's how it seems in the apparent story, but in actuality, that's only ever happening now. Now. That's our experience. The story isn't the reality. The story is something the humans made up to try and make sense of their environment and manipulate it for survival. And then we're like, that is the nature of reality. Cause and effect is the nature of reality. And yet science can't really pin that onto the greater scheme of things because things don't really make sense. Like, for an example, this I've forgotten the name of it. This new thing, I think it's quantum physics or physics, has discovered where two particles interact together. This is just mind-blowing. When two particles interact together, they are forever connected and affect the behavior of one another. I mean, that is mind-blowing. So two particles interact, no matter how far away they get from each other in this universe, the movement of this particle will always affect the movement of this one, and the movement of this one will always affect that one, which is mind-blowing. Think of all the different particles that body has interacted with in this life. And then as humans, we're like, life is happening by cause and effect. It's way more complex. I can't even describe to you that science because I'm not a scientist, but you can look it up on the internet, except I've forgotten the name of it. Someone can tell me in Skype. And then you've got quantum physics, which suggests that the particles, something along the lines of the particles only make a form when they are observed. So the particles are affected by the observer. So they could be anything, and they only become what they are when observed. I can't again explain that to you properly, but again, what I'm trying to hint at is that life is not what it seems. The stories in which we tell ourselves are very limited and based on storytelling. They're based on fiction. Like we understand that novels are fiction, but we don't seem to understand that our whole society is fiction. Money is fiction. Society is fiction. Trading is fiction. It's all stories that we're using in order to relate to each other, but they're not actually inherently true. Death is fiction. Birth is fiction. Life is fiction. Money is fiction. Tax office is fiction. Relationships are fiction. They're not inherently true. Mother is fiction, father is fiction, child is fiction. It's what we tell each other. If I tried to communicate to Khaleesi about the tax office, she's like, where's the chicken? Where's the chicken? And I'm trying to tell her, this is how the world works, this is the way it is. And the reason, and it still exists, even if she gets it or she doesn't. Or it doesn't really exist, but it's what I'm trying to say is that it's not real for her, but yet it seemingly is real for us in our society. And just because we think, oh, well, we're the best animals in the universe, we can do the most complex thing, we're the most intelligent, that our way is right. Whereas Khaleesi, it's like, boo, boo, boo. Especially the economy one. Economy is a really weird story, which I really can't quite fully grasp. The question that always blows my mind is I have to see if I can remember what the question is that blows my mind is. Yeah, I did ask someone this the other day and they gave me quite a satisfactory answer, but it still blows my mind thinking about it. So say if the whole economy crashes, like it does now, and the stock market loses that 20% or 30%, whatever it is, and all these things, and loads of people go bankrupt. Where does all their money go? In my mind, I imagine then, okay, so other people become rich from that, but it's not. The money just disappears. Everybody becomes poorer. It's really crazy, the idea of money. Somebody gave me a good explanation of it the other day, but again, I'm still there's still holes in it when I imagine. It doesn't logically make sense, money. So basically, you are that which is always here. You're not a story. You're not found in a story. Life isn't coming from a story. Life is coming from what's always present here. This moment, which is always here. This moment is always here. Consciousness is always here. This sense of being is always here. Stories come and go. Stories are proven and disproven, are always changing, dependent on our society, dependent who you're around, dependent on the way you view the world. They're not a fixed reality. And the idea that your life is coming from the past is whoop, whoop, whoop. A more advanced society would look at us and laugh at our stupidity for thinking that. How can you be coming from the past? You're here. You're always here. You're never ever coming from the past. You're always right here. And there's always this knowing of what's happening. And this knowing is so empty and free and never hurt by anything. It accepts everything. It's a total love. It's never rejecting anything. Consciousness is never excuse me, I don't like that, go away. is always accepting and loving and holding. The same with beingness, it's never rejecting itself. The person is accepting and rejecting, and when you believe that's who you are, then you're lost in this pendulum of pleasure and pain, pleasure and pain, pleasure and pain, pleasure and pain. Like lost, trying to hold on to that which is pleasurable and get away from that which is painful. Pleasure and pain are, nice, but it's not the be-all and the end-all. The be-all and end-all is this moment, is what's happening. It's so miraculous and exciting and free, and it's clear, it's clean. It doesn't blame, it doesn't reject, it doesn't hold on to anything. And yet it is all things. It's not bound inside of this body. It's explosive, it's everywhere. It is the wall, it is the curtain, it is the cups behind me, the cooker, me. It's everything, it makes up everything. Aga do do do, push my knuckles, shake the tree. Aga do do do, la 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 la. And when you're totally zoomed in on the person, you're totally bound by what that person believes and thinks and feels. So if you're insecure, that's who you are. If you're better than, that's who you are. If you're victim, that's who you are. Whereas your essence is infinite possibility. Your essence is everything. Your essence isn't contained and limited. And this is what most of humanity have forgotten, and therefore they live in a suffering world where they can't hold on to their pleasure. They can't hold on to that which they believe makes them free. They can't hold on to their lover or their kids or their home or their money or their environment or their life. They can't hold on to it. It comes and goes. Everything comes and goes. And while you believe you are one of those things that come and go, you're destined to suffer. What else is here? What's bigger than this you? That is God. That is what all the religions are always banging on about. Except they put it in some very elusive ways sometimes, because it's not easy to talk about. And often politics gets involved. They begin to turn it into hunting and gathering and survival and control.